What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Five Red Lights. My name's Jesse Finver, and with me, as always, Howard Goldberg, and we have a great episode for you guys this week. We had a hell of a race in Saudi Arabia from the get-go. Howie, first and foremost, how we doing?
We're doing good. That was a race. That was entertaining. Stuff happened. There were incidents, there were overtakes, there were non-overtakes. It was a really interesting race to watch. I
Yeah.
guess my first thing, it started right away. Turn one,
Yeah,
lap
dude.
one. What
Yes.
were your thoughts on that situation with Max and Oscar?
So, first of all, great get-off by Oscar. Impressive. So, when I was watching, and I should have just rewound to, I guess, hear what the announcers were saying again, but did the lights go out like relatively quickly this race? Like, was it like a
I
faster?
didn't pay attention to that, but
Because like it was a
I
fast.
did notice in F1 Academy and F2 this weekend, yes, almost immediately, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out.
Yeah, so like,
Almost immediately.
I think I heard the
It's
announcers
random.
mention that. It's random. Okay, that's good to know. So yeah, I
Yeah,
think that
well,
the
because
lights went out faster than normal, and Max just wasn't ready for that. And Lando, excuse me, not Lando. We'll get to Lando later. Oscar was just ready to go, and he had a great start. And one of my
it
thoughts,
was
I
that
thought,
first phase of the start that Oscar really got off the line, and that's where he
yeah,
made the difference.
and I think that Oscar beat him to the apex of the turn and
Absolutely.
had the right to take it, and Max earned that 5-second penalty. That's my take on it. I think that's like the consensus here. I don't think that unless you're a diehard Verstappen fan or a Red Bull fan or you're Christian Horner, I think, or Max Verstappen, who was apparently pissed. That video you sent me of Albon was hilarious. Where he had to take
Alex
the flight
flying home on Air Max and didn't realize what happened.
Yeah, he's like,
Found
oh,
out in real
okay,
time
yeah, I
in
guess
media
this won't
time.
be fun.
Hey, he was just like, oh, I think I'll just go to sleep.
Yeah. So Max was pissed. He thought that obviously he thought that he had the turn there. He did not. That was Oscar's
It's such
turn.
fine margins too. You can see like there's so little distance between who's ahead. I think the difference really came down to the fact that telemetry shows how late Max braked. He would have struggled even if there was no car alongside him to get all four wheels around turn two. It's
Right.
just a fact of the matter. And Oscar had all the momentum in that situation. Coming up the inside was ahead. So, yeah, it's a no brainer. And normally, a situation like this would be 10 seconds. Because it was lap one, turn one, the steward showed a little leniency. But like the incident people keep pointing to in relation to this was last year in Mexico. It was turn like 8 or 9, which enters like the fast, like almost S's in Mexico.
Okay.
And that's when Max pushed Lando wide. Lando had the speed; he was going to overtake him, and Max himself went all four wheels over the white lines to keep Lando from overtaking him. And so, like, I don't see those as apples to apples because not a single wheel of Oscar's even touched a white line. He kept all four completely on the tarmac. And so I don't see there wasn't, if Max was trying to really make the corner, there would have been room for Oscar to give him.
Yeah.
I stand by that.
No, I totally agree. Just a really impressive start from Oscar Piastri, and he earned. There were plenty of overtakes, but Oscar held his ground, and it was a very entertaining race still. But that start set the tone for the entire race.
And I think that what that incident as a whole was pretty indicative of what this season has turned into, with how important qualifying is, how important clean air is. That's why
Yes.
Max was willing to give up 5 seconds to be able to have clean air because he totally thought he would be able to make that up, and he almost did. You have to realize, like, towards the end of the race, he was closing back on Oscar, and you don't know if that's because Oscar's like, I have this in hand, I'm going to manage a little bit. Don't know if it's because the Red Bull actually was as fast as it looked.
Which
But
we'll find out soon.
there was, I mean, Max had the best race pace. It was 4 thousandths per lap faster than Oscar, and almost like 4 tenths a lap faster than Lando. So like he had amazing pace. Um,
And not just the car itself. I mean, he's Max. So like he's gonna be like as good as Oscar is, as good as Charles is, as good as Lando is, as good as George is. Max is just better than them. He just is. He's the best driver in the world. So like that alone is gonna give him an advantage there. He's gonna
but I
brake
think
later.
that's
He's gonna
also,
turn tighter. Like it's just what it is.
I think it's also why they knew they had to penalize, and they couldn't just let it go as a racing incident, or
No, they had to,
because
they had to penalize him. He was in the wrong there. The announcers were shocked that it was only 5 seconds. You mentioned it should have been 10.
well,
I
because
agree.
now what's to stop somebody like in Monaco from cutting that first corner, taking the lead, and then driving off up the road? Like, they're five
Well,
seconds. You could
if you do
easily make
that,
that up.
that
So
that's it. It's going to be more than 5 seconds if you do that in Monaco. I mean, that's like it's such. Monaco's even
well,
tighter than
shouldn't it
Saudi
have been
Arabia
more
is.
than 5 seconds in Saudi?
Yeah, I think so. I think it should have been
Max
10.
came out of the pits in like P5, P6. Didn't really impact his race that
Yeah,
5 seconds.
he came in
He
second.
was
I
able to
mean,
put like 3 seconds on Oscar in that first stint because of the clean air.
yep.
And that's just the difference it makes. And I think that's what Fred Vasseur was referring to a few weeks ago. And it actually leads to one of my key takeaways of the race, which is that clean air is clearly king this year. Why teams aren't at this point just setting their car up 100% to qualifying and reaping those benefits and maintaining track position and clean air and just taking whatever points you can get in that sense, which I think is kind of what Williams did this weekend. And it worked. The Williamses were fast in a straight line, made them hard to overtake on the straights. And you saw how Carlos and Alex played those DRS games at the end to keep Alex in Carlos's DRS to
Yeah.
stop Isaac on fresh medium tires from attacking them.
Shout out
And
Carlos.
so,
He had his best race of the season.
yeah, so I think teams are going to have to start looking at the way they're setting up their cars, and it's starting to seem like clean air has a much bigger impact on tire degradation and keeping them fresh than downforce this year, which is incredibly strange because downforce has always been the key to that. And so now, instead of just throwing a ton of downforce on your car and being slower in qualifying, faster in the race, you might start seeing things swing the other way.
When would we see that? Do you know, like when the next upgrade packages go through, or is it week to week, like depending on when a
It'll
team?
be, well, no, that's setup. Setup can happen
Oh,
any
week to
week.
week. Yeah.
Yeah, setup is how steep your wing angle is, and all that kind of stuff that impacts the drag and downforce. But yeah,
I mean, you
it
saw
sounds
Oscar.
like
You saw
Red Bull
Oscar
is bringing
complain. No, you
about
saw. Sorry, no, you go. You go.
no. Oh well, Red Bull, it sounds like, is bringing a big upgrade package in Imola, and they think that's going to put them on par or better than McLaren.
Until McLaren has an upgrade package of their own. But I was saying, you saw Oscar when he was in the lead. It was late in the race, and he needed to get past. I think it was Bortoleto, and lap him, and he was complaining about the dirty air. And there was genuine concern in his voice. And
How
the
about when
announcers,
before Lando pitted,
yeah,
and once Oscar got to like 2.6, 2.7 seconds away, he got on the team radio and said, "I'm starting to feel Lando's dirty air."
Yeah. It was multiple
And I
times that
think
he
that's
mentioned
what
it.
led them to pit Lando, because they realistically probably should have left Lando out for a few more laps.
Yeah.
But in doing that, they would have either compromised Oscar and his new new hard tires, or they would have compromised by keeping him in Lando's dirty air, or if they swapped them, because that's what race strategy indicated they should have done, is probably keep them out and just swap the two and let Oscar drag Lando around with his DRS.
Yeah.
Because theoretically on the fresher tires, Oscar should be faster, right? And he was closing up. Um, but they pitted Lando instead. And I think he lost a little bit of his overcut, because in clean air he was doing well. And he would have had fresher tires at the end, you know? But I think ultimately what undid Lando, he had decent damage limitation during the race from 10th to 4th. Obviously, 2 cars ahead of them, Pierre and Yuki crashing out helped him.
Yeah.
2 fewer cars he had to overtake on the road. But I think the biggest thing that hurt him was, you get a pass. What happened with Lewis? You get a pass falling for that once. Falling for that twice is kind of inexcusable, especially when you consider the history of that corner at this track. In 2021, the first time they were there, it was an epic you go first, no, you go first between Max and Lewis, because both of them wanted DRS. Until like 2 years ago, the DRS detection point for the main straight was at the entry to that corner. Because of all these games of people braking early, they moved it to the exit of the corner to try to promote you to want to be ahead.
Mm.
The fact that Lewis still played this game, like, no, you still go first. You shouldn't have to have your team tell you, play the game here, let him go first. You should know that. It's like, I'm sitting here before the first time they approached that corner. As they were going through that DRS zone leading up to it, I'm sitting there like, don't do it, Lando. Don't do it. Don't do it. And sure enough, he did it. And then the second time around, I was like, surely he's not going to make that mistake again. And he did. And I was dumbfounded. Just absolutely dumbfounded. And then to go on line after the race, when you see that Oscar didn't fall for that same thing after his pit stop, because Lando went through first before his pit stop, and then Oscar boxed, came through after. Oscar went through on the first time. People online are trying to say, oh, well, he had his team to tell him what happened with Lando. No, he just has a memory.
Pay attention.
Yeah, it's just like that. It's just disappointing from Lando. You expect more from him than that.
Yeah. And this has been a common theme throughout the season, where these mistakes cost him, and
I have sympathy for his qualifying mistake. I do. I'll let you go and then I'll explain it.
No, you go. I'm interested to hear what do you mean you have sympathy? Why does he get a pass for that qualifying mistake? That was
because
that felt like it
happen.
was. Yeah,
it absolutely can't happen on run 1 of Q3. You have to get a banker on the board. You need to bank a lap there at a tight walled street circuit. And that's the part that I'm hung up on. If that happens in run 2 of Q3, once you have like a solid lap on the board, puts you like P5, whatever. You were pushing the limit and got unlucky. And But the way it happened in run one, he got a little bit unlucky getting loose and having a snap while he was on that curb. But it looked like he had essentially saved the car. And just about any other track on the calendar, he's fine. He maybe dips a wheel in a gravel trap and keeps going. And it probably slows him down like a second and a half on that lap because it looked like he caught the snap. But the problem is there was a wall right there that as he caught the snap, his left rear wheel went right into the wall. And so, like, I have a little sympathy because if there was just that little bit more margin of error, he would have saved it. But the fact is that there wasn't, and you have to be conscious of this. And it just, after all of the mistakes that we've seen him make already this year, you want to see him be extra conscious and put a lap up there and then push for it, you know?
Yes, absolutely. I think this is a good transition. So I think this is a good transition to talk about Max and Lando, because Max looked much faster than Lando this week, and we've been talking a lot about clean and dirty air.
I don't know about. Go ahead.
No, because is this something to keep an eye on? Is Max showing that he's just like that Red Bull? Or let me phrase this another way. Is Red Bull making a little bit of a jump here and showing us, hey, we're faster than you think we are? Or is this more Max? Or is this a clean versus dirty air thing? And this was more of the track in Saudi Arabia and it being a tight street course? Because it feels like Lando keeps on making these mistakes. And it to me, McLaren still has the fastest car. But I've said this already this episode. Max is the best driver. He is. So, yeah. Is this a clean versus dirty air thing? Like I mentioned before, like Oscar was worried multiple times in the race that he was caught behind dirty air and that Max was gaining on him, you know? And then Max had to sit behind the dirty air for like half a lap and he lost a little bit of time and then he got back into the clean air and he made it up. So it's just, what do we make of this Max Verstappen run that he's on right now? Because it's been nothing but doubters so far this season, I feel like. And all he's done is prove them wrong week after week.
I mean, what I make of this Max Verstappen run that we're currently watching is it's one of the best drivers of all time that we've seen in this sport at his best, in his prime. And it's no different than when we were watching, as you know, baseball fans, when we were watching Mike Trout from like 2012 to 2016. He's just like perennially putting in seasons that were just like unheard of. Same with Miggy Cabrera, like triple crown basically every year for a few years. And so it's just one of those times that you have to just look and appreciate what he's doing. And it's hard not having the reference of what Yuki did this weekend over the course of the race and not being able to see what his race pace was like. It's hard to really place where the Red Bull car is because when you look at the race pace, Max was number one in Jeddah. So it's, I think, a little bit down to the fact that the track suits the car, definitely. It's a pointy car with a lot of front end. It turns in very well and is very highly responsive. But I think it also suits Max's characteristics as a driver very well too. And it's a really perfect marriage for them because Max has that innate reaction, that just inherent ability to feel the flow of a racetrack. And by the account of anybody who's driven that circuit in a Formula One car, it is down to flow and feeling. And that is what separates the best drivers of all time from the great drivers. And That's why you see some of them able to elevate themselves to a different level on certain circuits.
which is what he did here
Yeah.
in Saudi Arabia, and what he's been doing this season. You know, McLaren is running away with the constructors. They're up a lot of points. The World Drivers' Championship is wide open right now.
Yeah. And I think I was
Max
thinking
is
about
firmly
this.
in the race.
I was thinking about this just before we started the recording this. Lando really needs to dig in. He's at danger. I've been saying the past couple weeks, every time you bring up papaya rules and can they, or do you see them possibly doing team orders? And I say, if it's a race between their two drivers, absolutely not. If it's a race between their two drivers for the drivers title, no, they're not going to do anything. But if it turns into a 1-versus-1 against between one of their drivers against Max, all bets are off. Actually,
and
all bets are on. All bets are on.
Yeah,
because I would bet my house that I do not own on the fact that they will throw all their weight behind whoever it takes to win.
Right, and I think
it's not a battle between both their drivers.
Say it's Oscar 1, Max 2, Lando 3, and there's 3 races left. You know, and it's still and Lando still has a shot.
They did this with
they're gonna throw their weight behind Oscar if he's in first at that point, because they want to make sure that their driver wins the championship. So if Lando's in first place for a little bit, and if there's 2 races left, and Lando's in first place and he has an outside shot, I mean, I guess they could they stick with it, but like I would be like, listen, Oscar's in first. We want to win this championship. Sorry, man, but you didn't show up the rest of the season. Like
they're gonna really need one of them to be out of it. This situation came up last year when it looked like Lando had a chance at one point, which realistically he actually didn't in hindsight. But when you look back, when we think about that, they waited until Oscar was pretty much out of it to ask him to start helping and swapping position. And then once it was clear that Lando couldn't win it, they were like, okay, go back to racing.
Yeah.
So I see a situation like that happening. I really do. And you don't know what's going to happen in new regulations. They're going to want to win. But I think as long as both drivers are in the fight, we're going to see no kind of favoritism. It's going to be whoever is leading on that day in that race is going to get priority. So it'll be really interesting.
It's going to be fascinating. I can't wait for it. This is what makes this sport so great. These types of storylines. So it's another interesting
also
track.
That you don't know who's going to show up any given weekend.
Right. Exactly. It's the consistency isn't there with Lando right now, so you just don't know. Maybe he does show up in Miami, you know, and he has a great race.
What car package is going to work at any given track? Like
with the clean versus dirty air too.
Which driver is going to have the tool to perform on any given weekend?
Yeah.
And it's not like that in other sports. In other sports, it's dependent on your ability. In soccer, you go out there, how well are you dribbling? How well are you passing? How well are you shooting? You know, those are your inputs. In a Formula One car, your input is standing on the gas pedal, standing on the brake pedal, turning the wheel. And the result of those two inputs are so different, right? You have so much more control over the result of the input you have on a soccer field than the result of an impact in a Formula One car, because it's so dependent on the machine you're sitting in. So that's part of like what adds to the sport. Like Mercedes this weekend, those two drivers did not have the car during the race to do anything with them. That they had no pace. They fell right back through the field. They fell right into the Ferraris.
Speaking of the Ferraris and the Mercedes, I guess we should just talk about them together. We've talked a lot about Red Bull, and we've talked a lot about McLaren. We even got a little Williams talk in there real quick. But
who, by the way, are starting to show up.
Yeah,
they are. They're finally fit. They're finally where a lot of people thought they would be in the standings.
Yeah, and I'm excited to. They're like, I mean,
Do you think
I
they
root
can
for
catch fourth?
McLaren, but we'll see. We'll see. Let's not get too excited about Williams just yet. But it's nice to see them not at the bottom of the field for once.
But I mean, I think it will be Ferrari and Mercedes that they're chasing.
Yes, which let's talk about Ferrari and Mercedes. Great weekend from Charles. Just
Another one.
Yeah, and I was a little critical of Ferrari. I've been very critical of Ferrari, but I was a little critical of Charles and being like, "Where you at? Where you at, bro? What's going on?" And he had his first podium of the weekend of the season. He was fast. He was really fast. The team was. I saw they had the fastest pit stop. Good for them. 2-second pit
By
stop.
0.2.
Yeah.
Both of their pit stops were 0.2 faster than the next closest.
So honestly, I mean, and I mean, from as far as I could tell, they had good race strategy. Again, you're going against a rocket ship in McLaren and the best driver in the world in Max, so it's a little tough. But Charles did really well. I mean, what did
Charles
you?
had the stint of the race.
Yeah, what did you see out of Ferrari?
I mean, on those mediums, so most of the drivers on the mediums pitted between laps 18 and 22. Charles and Ferrari decided to capitalize on the clean air, and they left him out until lap 29. They were able to do that because he had incredible handle on his degradation. His tire deg was six hundredths of a second faster per lap than anybody else.
That's pretty
Meaning
good.
like, yeah, which if you stretch that over 25 laps, that's 1.5 seconds of advantage just through tire conservation. So he was able to maintain that performance throughout that stint, and it's what helped him get past George and ultimately stay ahead of Lando at the end, is because his tires were that much fresher. He was on the hards versus Lando's mediums, but he was able to, at the end of the race, essentially put in 20 qualifying laps on those hard tires because he did so much on those mediums. So he really put himself in position for that podium with that incredible stint. And good on Ferrari for seeing what was unfolding and going with it.
It's just nice to see. It's nice to see that red car on the podium. It's nice to see Ferrari show up because we had high expectations for them this season, and they have not even come close to living up to them. Which brings me to what I wanted to mention next. What's going on with Lewis? Because I know it's a new car, it's a new team, but this was the 6th race of the season, and right, we on 6 or are we on? This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th race of this. This is the 5th round, and I don't think he's finished higher than 6. Does that sound right?
It does, and
yeah.
I think part of it, the top
What's going
of the
on?
field is so close together, and the fact that he just doesn't know the car yet is really hurting. And I think that you look back over the course of Formula One, not many times a driver has spent 10 plus years at one team. So when you think about all the programming that he has in his brain from Mercedes and everything that he learned, and it's now like a different language. It literally a different language. They speak Italian. And the team works in Italian. It's not just the language they speak in the country. So it's a completely different experience for him. He has to first forget all the habits he's built since 2013 when he moved to McLaren. So 12 years. And then he has to learn the characteristics of this new car, not having a lot of testing in it, trying to come to grips and get on the level as his extremely fast teammate, which probably isn't helping him in the sense that it's just adding pressure.
He's only
So
finished ahead of Charles once in qualifying, and he finished
it was
fifth,
a
and it was in
sprint.
China. No, it
yeah.
was in China, and it was for the race itself, but they got DQ'd for that race. So that would have been their best finish also, but it didn't end up even mattering. And yeah,
I think we need to give him time. It's former drivers who've switched teams have said that that was a harder transition for them than when they came into the sport as a rookie. So, and I think that goes under the radar. I don't think people think about that. And we just
I
need to give him
understand that.
time.
It's just this is Lewis Hamilton we're talking about.
I'm well aware of that, but this is
know?
also the most competitive the top of the grid has been in 6, 7, 10 years. So you have to keep that in mind too. Of maybe in the 2023 Ferrari, Lewis hops in and is already putting in P4s.
It's been P7 or P8 every race other than China, which is pretty crazy.
I'm aware of that, but you look back last year at this time, Mercedes was slower and McLaren was slower. Right?
Yeah.
It was. They were the
finished.
clear number two car. At this time in 2023, they were still fighting for wins against that Red Bull. Right? Didn't they win Australia in 2023 when
that I don't know. But
or no, that was last year actually when Carlos came back and had his appendix removed.
Yes, that was
he came back and won Australia. They had the pace to win the races last year. This year they don't necessarily have that to start the year. And so that also has to be taken into account. Of the Ferrari was finishing on the podiums 22, 23, 24. Well, the top of the grid wasn't as close to Ferrari and Red Bull as they were
now
this year.
And they're behind Red Bull and Mercedes and McLaren right now. So yeah, all right.
It
so
really was this Miami. So like the next round where Red Bull, honestly it wasn't really Miami. It was really like Austria Miami was when Red Bull really, McLaren really found its pace last year. So we were just getting to that point.
All right, so let's see. Again, I'm just putting it out into the universe. I'm a little disappointed with what we've seen from Ferrari. I'm very disappointed with what we've seen from Ferrari overall because of the management issues we saw early on, and it was really good to see them rebound this week and get a podium. But and again, I understand new team, very difficult to transition, new language. It's just a little disappointing seeing the start that they've had to the season, especially for Lewis, who's arguably the best driver ever. And
I will say too, I think both Lewis and Fernando have lost something. I don't think they're operating at the same level.
Yeah, and they're older.
I think they're still at a very high level because their level was above
everybody else.
Of the other drivers on the grid.
Fernando came in
the one
11?
that wasn't is Max, So
what did Fernando come in? He came in 11th.
But he still hasn't scored this year. Which, looking at the fact that Lance even scored in the first two races with all the disqualifications, that's not great. But it's just they don't seem to have that pace that they used to have.
Well, I'm with you on Alonso. I'm going to hold off on. I mean, Hamilton. I guess it's fair to say that with what we've seen so far, but
it's because it's not just this year.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years now.
Mercedes, we started seeing it too. Like obviously he won a couple times last year, but it was a lot of the same complaints the last 3 years between both Mercedes and this car. So we'll see. I hope it's not true, but it's starting to feel that way.
let's just say we're putting it on our. It's on our radar. It's on our radar. This might be the beginning of the end for Lewis Hamilton, but I'm not buying that yet, just yet. All right, no great way to transition to this, but this is a really, really tough weekend for Yuki Tsunoda, and we can just touch on this briefly.
It was
Big
crash in qualifying,
the crash in qualifying, and the crash in the race. I mean, I texted you when I was watching quali, and I was like, "Oh no, Yuki," and you were pumping the brakes a little bit, saying, "Listen, like this is not great." But if he can rebound come race time,
which he did all right. He put in a good qualifying.
Yeah,
he got to Q3. He crucially helped Max by giving him a slipstream on the main straight, which helped him get the pole. So he played a role this weekend for Red Bull. And also I was watching onboards this morning before we recorded this. I watched both his onboard and Pierre's onboard from that accident. And I'm not sure what Yuki could have done differently there. He was on the inside. First off, that's an unconventional passing zone. It's a pretty fast corner with not very heavy braking. There's a wall on the inside apex. So you can't really put a wheel over the apex at all. You can't really straddle that curb. So it makes it really hard. It's a quick left and right. So it's almost a chicane. And I don't know what Pierre was thinking trying to go through the outside of that side by side.
Did they give like
if Yuki took that first left turn any sooner, he would have clipped his left rear any harder, he would have clipped his left rear on the wall. And
did they give
himself.
did the FIA give like an explanation on who's to blame for
that? I
that?
think they called that a racing incident, which is absolutely the right call. That's a situation where one of them Pierre should have gone wide. That's where what Max did applies.
So tough weekend for Yuki. Just wanted to bring that up. That was it was very unfortunate. Yes, he did help Max during quali, but to have the crash in quali, and then it was
it's
in the race itself. It was the wing that bounced into the wall.
Yeah, he was so close to getting away with it too, because it was their tires touched. Pierre's tire touched Yuki's tire, and that sent them both spinning. Yeah, if his rear wing didn't hit the wall, he would have been able to continue. Which kind of brings me to another set of current events with Red Bull drivers, which is reports surfacing this week after the race that George and Christian Horner have held informal talks with each other, just feeling each other out, seeing what their situation is.
So what does that mean? Are they going on a little date? They get a little dinner and wining and dining and finding out if they want to,
I don't think it's that far yet. I don't think it's gotten that far yet. I'd equate it more to like sending DMing an Instagram post to them and being like, "Hey, this is real." Like they're both seeing the rumors around each other, right? Like obviously George is seeing rumors that Max might be coming to take his seat. Obviously Christian is seeing rumors that Max might be going to take George's seat. So that leaves them both in a precarious situation. George is not going to have a seat. Christian's not going to have a number one driver. So it's only natural that they talk to each other, at least establish what's your situation looking like, what's yours looking like. That way, like if it gets to a point, there's an entry point for those conversations.
Right. I do like the idea of a straight swap, because it's not a trade. It's just like, oh, you're taking my seat. I guess I'll take your seat if it's open. If it's open, I'll take your seat. because
Which
there's
I
no
feel like is
trades.
what a lot of people thought was going to happen with Hamilton and Sainz
Yeah,
at first, and then obviously quickly Kimi emerged as a realistic option. But yeah,
which thankfully he did, and I'm happy that Kimmy has that Mercedes seat. But I am happy that Carlos is at Williams and that he finally had a nice little race, because that's all you can really call it when you're in fifth place. Yeah, they had a nice little race. You know, they're not competing yet, but I do like
they're where they want to be this year.
yeah,
I think that's the important thing.
100%.
It's
So
fifth place. This is their best start in 9 years, 10 years since 2016. So they haven't had this many points through 6 races in a decade.
let's wrap up Saudi Arabia real quick. What's your overall big takeaway from?
Well,
you go first. I'll give mine, but you go first. What's your biggest takeaway? Your big overall 10,000-foot view of Saudi Arabia?
I touched
The
on
Grand
it
Prix,
before.
not the country. The Grand Prix.
I touched on it before, and that's clean air. Clean air is king, and almost more important than downforce this year, I think, in terms of preserving tires and race pace. Um, I think it's time for teams to just build a qualifying car, set up a qualifying car, and race with that, as opposed to worrying about race pace. I think that might help them fare better. And if you can get yourself fast enough in a straight line where you won't be able to be overtaken under DRS, then I think you're safe. We kind of saw that from Williams this weekend, and it helped them secure double points and move up in the championship. So
Yeah,
I think that was my big takeaway.
I like that. I like that. My big takeaway is that this is Oscar's title to lose, and I think that Max is clearly he's Max. He can definitely win the championship, especially if the upgrades in Imola come in and the setups that they keep on putting out help them, and Max keeps qualifying at 1 or 2. Max can definitely win, and I think Lando can win if he starts being consistent and he limits his mistakes. But right now we have Oscar Piastri as the leader in the title race, and he, for my money, has looked like the best combo of driver and car in the field this season. Obviously, there's better drivers than him out there, but he has the best car and he is an elite driver, and that combination, to me, makes him the favorite right now to win. And I could look. In fact, I will look. I am interested to see what the odds are for the. So this is going to do a little bad radio here. F1 Drivers Championship odds. Let's see. Odds checker.
Yeah, I think there's something in what you're saying about the right driver with the best car. And
Right?
he keeps his head so well in pressurized situations. And I have a point on that to add once you find these odds.
So right now, Lando and Oscar are both plus 160. Max is plus 600 and George is plus 1400. So the betting markets.
Shit, might be time to put a couple bucks on Max.
Oh wait, sorry, no, that's just for Miami. Hold on. Drivers Championship. Oscar is plus 105. Lando's plus 225. Max is plus 500. George is plus 2800. So that's the Drivers Championship.
So it is a 3-horse race, so that makes sense. Yeah, I'm back to that point that I said I had about Oscar keeping his head so well, and you see the same thing with Max. Obviously, Max shows a lot of frustration too, but he doesn't let it impact what he does on the track. And it's something that I've been seeing a lot online of you have to start wondering. Max has his father, Jos Verstappen, by his side for advice.
Yeah.
Who had a Formula One career. You might want to say it wasn't a successful one. Who cares? A lot of people say you learn more from failure than success. So take that for how you will. Then in Oscar's camp, you have Mark Webber, who was a very good driver for Red Bull, multi-race winner. Before this week, before Oscar took the championship lead, he was the most recent Australian to lead the World Drivers' Championship. He was also in a situation where he was in the best car, and it was him and his driver fighting for the championship and dealing with team orders. And so he is an invaluable person, particularly in this season, for Oscar to have by his side and get advice from. And it leads you to wonder, who's Lando getting this type of advice from? Because you don't hear about a former driver who has kind of taken him under his wing, or even an older driver on the grid who's taken him under his wing and given him advice and all that kind of stuff. And like, you see like this relationship between Max and Fernando, and like Fernando and Gabriel Bortoleto. Obviously Fernando manages him, but like you see Max this year with the rookies like Kimi and Gabriel and Isaac, and like it just, you wonder like who does Lando have like that? Because I don't think he's getting that advice, and I think we're starting to see the difference in what it does mentally for a driver to have somebody like that to tap into.
He's got his chat. He does love his streams.
Yes.
Sorry, that was low hanging
Team
fruit.
Quadrant for the win.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a great question, Howie. Who does he have in his corner? And I mean, I don't think either of us have the answer to that question.
It's not to say that that's going to make the difference. Like Mick Schumacher had Sebastian Vettel as his mentor, and things didn't work out.
Grew up watching his father,
right, but he had that guy,
Yeah. No, it's not a guarantor of success. To have that sort of mentor, but it definitely can't hurt.
Exactly.
It can't hurt to have that. So, no, that's a great.
It's such a small sport and a small world, Formula One. Not that many people know the experience that a Formula One driver goes through. So it can be, I can only imagine it's very isolating. And being able to relate to people in anything is helpful.
Yeah.
It's helpful for your mental health.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. What else we got here? We have a whole bunch of stuff we need to talk about.
Yeah, there's kind of some current events in Formula One that are going on. One of the quirky ones that I find both
walk me through
and very frustrating is that this weekend's Formula 2 race winner, Richard Verschoor, obviously can be fast. He won this weekend's race, is now the Formula 2 championship leader. The problem I have with this, though, is he is older than our current Formula 1 World Drivers' Championship leader. He is older than Oscar Piastri. Richard Verschoor has been in Formula 2 for 5 years. He raced against Zhou Guanyu and Logan Sargent in the series. They both beat him. They both moved on to Formula 1, had multi-year careers, and are no longer in seats. Yet, Richard Verschoor, who was dropped from the Red Bull Academy years ago, has no prospects to get into Formula 1, has not won this series, so he can't be kicked out of it, and is just like driving around for shits and giggles. Is this the point of a feeder series? Is this the point of this development series for Formula One, to have people with no prospects of getting to the Formula One continue to drive around in it? I feel like there needs to be some kind of reform in this. Like,
I
he's
see what
now
you mean.
25 years old. This is a junior racing series. Go race in one of the sports car series in Europe. Go race in European Le Mans. Go race in WEC. Go race almost anywhere, but in this series that's supposed to be an opportunity for up and coming drivers to get to Formula One.
It's interesting because, so let me ask you this, like, should there be an age limit? And I have an answer to this question before you answer. Like, should
No.
there be an age limit in baseball in the minor leagues? And the answer is no, obviously not, because there's way more open roster spots in baseball. There's injuries, and a 33-year-old may get called up and make his major league debut because they need a third baseman, and he's the third baseman in AAA. And he finally gets his shot. There's 20 seats in Formula One.
And one position.
That's it. And one position. It's the driver's position. So, no, that is an excellent question. My answer is I don't let him drive. I don't care. Let him drive. I think that it's a very good point you make that, like, this should be a feeder series for the young kids. Go drive in WEC. Go drive in Le Mans. Do whatever. Do something else. Go to IndyCar if you want to drive these types of cars.
Exactly.
But he's not hurting anybody.
All right, so counterpoint to that. In order to get to Formula One, you need a super license, right?
Okay.
How do you earn those points for a super license? By your finish in the standings in Formula 2, Formula 3. And those are the series that give you the most points for a
So
super
who
license.
is he holding back right now? Is there somebody I can look at and be like, this is an outrage?
A bunch of guys are going to lose points
for sure. Needs to sit.
If he finishes high up in the championship, you need 40 points. Let me try to find real quick.
I'm just playing devil's advocate here, if we're being honest, because I think that it is a good. There's only 20 seats, right? So I think that that's a good point. And
here's how the points break down for super license from F2. First place to third place, you get 40 points. So if you finish top 3, you have enough points for Formula One. Fourth place, 30 points. Fifth place, 20 points. Sixth place, 10 points. From there, it goes down. It goes 8, 6, 4 for 7th, 8th, and 9th place, and then 3 points for 10th place. So yeah, this is impacting people. If he finishes top 5 in the championship, he's taking a super license, essentially, away from somebody who probably deserves it.
Is he even getting like FP1? Like,
no. Like, I think he might be too old for that. Or I think you just have to be a rookie. But like, it's a problem.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's a problem. That's not the spirit of a junior series.
All right, you convinced me. We need to get him out of the sport.
Yeah.
He needs to go. He's got to go.
And it's like, it's not wanting to kick him out of the sport. It's just, there's a purpose. There's a reason that this particular series exists, and it needs to be maintained.
You've sold me. I'm sold. We need to get for sure out of F2. He's taking a valuable seat away from somebody that could be getting their super license points. No, it's a good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, it was a thing when Logan Sargent needed to finish 4th in his championship to get enough super license points. And so, like, imagine you're Logan Sargent with an offer on the table, provided you have the points. And here's this guy who's been driving around with no chance of getting to Formula One. All the teams have already said, we have no interest. And yet he finishes ahead of you and knocks you down to where you don't get enough points. So, like,
I'd be
that's the
pissed.
context in which I say. Another, I guess, driver-related thing is Jack Doohan and Franco Colapinto has been a hot topic this year, right?
Yeah.
Sounds
You brought up Colapinto a couple weeks ago.
Sounds like Alpine is giving Jack a little bit longer of a leash.
Ooh.
Yeah, it looks like he now has until summer break. So
Okay.
until about August, round 14 is when summer break starts after round 14 in Hungary.
What do you think of doing so far? I mean, I feel like he's been very up and down.
It's been a mixed bag, but so has their car, hasn't it?
Yeah.
He hasn't been all that far away from Pierre when the end of the races have come around. So, and
Other than last week.
And he's shown decent improvement. He's shown that he's getting better in the car, which is the important thing. So no, I don't see it as a bad decision. I think it's the right one. I think it's sensible. I think what Red Bull did earlier this year might have played a part in it. I think they saw the reaction to Red Bull, even if it was the right choice, in hindsight. The reaction to them removing Lawson for Yuki, I think they know they need to be very sure before they make a mid-season driver change.
Alpine's in a very different spot than Red Bull is.
So exactly, they're not fighting to win a championship. They can afford to take fewer points.
Yes.
So I think they're being very calculated, which is a good thing. Making sure that they're making the right decision.
I have no problem with that at all. This is not Red Bull. Well, Red Bull is, like you said, they're fighting for a champion. Well, they're not going to get the constructors, but Max is fighting for drivers, and he needs somebody, a teammate he can rely on. And Liam Lawson was not that guy. Yuki has shown already. I mean, it was a rough weekend for him, but he's proven throughout his career that he can.
Yuki's made his first 2 threes.
Yeah.
When's the last time that happened in Red Bull for the second driver? It's probably somewhere early last season, which is ridiculous.
Yeah. So, no, that's definitely
And I think that also Alpine, I think obviously they're very interested in Franco Colapinto, but I think they also do want to do right by Jack Doohan. He's been a part of their team for a long time. He's been a development driver. He was part of their youth program. He's been their reserve driver for like 3 years. So I think they want to make sure this is Jack's only chance for Formula One, right? I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, they still want to make sure that they do right by him, making sure that his one chance in Formula One at least is a fair one.
I respect that.
But at the end of the day, once you get that fair chance, we need to do what's best for our team. And if that other driver is going to be faster for us, that's what we have to do. That's also totally acceptable.
Yeah, 100%. But I do like that they're waiting until summer and giving him a fair shot.
Mm-hmm.
He deserves
and
that.
Also,
he's a rookie. He deserves that. And they're Alpine. They're not fighting for a championship spot. This is, develop your driver. Yes. Maybe he shows you something in a couple of weeks, like the next couple of weeks, and you're like, oh, we might have something with this guy. Maybe good thing we didn't switch him out.
That's right. I think Bahrain, he kind of showed glimpses of what he could do on tracks he knows. Now I want to move from one Alpine to another. Not even Formula One. It's Alpine in the World Endurance Championship.
Look at this transition. Look at this. Look at this guy.
Look at that. It's almost like I'm on a Segway. Mick Schumacher. He's driving for Alpine in WEC and had a heck of a weekend in Imola. It was a 6-hour race in Imola.
So what is WEC for the uninitiated?
WEC is the World Endurance Championship, as I had just mentioned, Jesse. Stick with the program, kid.
Sorry, I missed that. I missed that. That's my apologies. Sorry, I'm keeping time of our segments here.
And so these races range anywhere from like 6 to 24 hours. And they only have like 6-7 races during the season. This is the series that Le Mans is part of. And they have 3 drivers for each car. And the Alpine team, still a brand new team. It's only their second year competing in the hypercar category, which is the top class. And this week, Mick qualified the car. He was one of the 3 drivers that was picked to qualify this week. And he put the car P6 on the grid, which is pretty good for them. They're a midfield team. And I'd say in relation to this year's Formula One grid, they're probably like Williams. He then drove the final stint. His 2 teammates drove the first 4 hours, and he got in the car for the last 2 hours. Got in the car in P7, and his teammates did a great job driving to set up the strategy that they wanted to pull off. And with this strategy, he ended up finishing P3 and putting that thing on the podium in the last 2 hours. And it was awesome. It was really cool watching. As somebody who's not like a huge WEC viewer, I don't understand everything intimately. I don't know it as well as Formula One. So I was watching them drive around. I'm like, oh my God, how'd they just pick up 20 seconds in that pit stop? Because the pit stops are a lot longer. They have to refuel the car. The pit stops are like a minute and a half in WEC. And so basically they short fueled one of the pit stops, picked up like 15, 20 seconds on the cars around them, came back in, did another short stop, and that pushed them up like 4 spots. It was unbelievable. It was awesome.
I love that. There's so much strategy in the pit stops. That's great.
Yes. That's the exciting thing about it. And there's a lot more traffic that they have to fight through because there's 2 classes of slower cars also racing at the same time on the same track. So it's a cool series. If you haven't checked it out, if you're in America, you can watch it on Max, HBO on Max. And yeah, give it a try. But you love to see Mick Schumacher finding his feet somewhere. I think a lot of people have been rooting for his success. Didn't work out in Formula One. Obviously a ton of pressure for him, but it's good to see him finding his spot over there in WEC.
Very happy for Mick because it clearly did not go great. He was at Haas, right? Was it Haas? Yeah. Did not go great for him at Haas, which he's already behind the 8 ball having to drive for Haas as it is. Maybe one day he gets back, but
who knows?
All right, let's look ahead. Let's wrap this thing up. Miami, week and a half away. Lando won last year. This was your first ever Grand Prix that you attended. You're not going back this year, though, right?
I am not.
Not going back. So Lando's got to be feeling good going into this race.
You hope so.
Yeah, you'd hope so. Now, obviously,
if any circuit's going to give some confidence, it's this one. It's the one where he got his first win.
Yeah. Now, he qualified 5th, and a safety car helped him, if I remember correctly, right? But he still got the win, and that should definitely feel good. But this is a Verstappen.
Say, though, the safety car helped him, but the reason that he was still out when the safety car came out is because he took care of his tires pretty well and was flying at the end of that first stint. Max and the other cars ahead of him had already come in because they were chewing through tires, and he was still out there putting in basically fastest laps of the race. So he earned it. The safety car definitely just helped him with track position, though.
Yeah. So, definitely got to look out for Lando in Miami. But this is one of Max's favorite
Red Bull
places.
playground.
Yeah, this is one of Max's favorite places to race, and I think that we should let's just jump right into your quali predictions. My quali predictions. I'll go first. I have Max, Oscar, Charles, and what this
we have the
says
same
is
3 drivers.
But different order. And what this says to me, and looking at this, I have lost a lot of faith in Lando.
Mm-hmm.
I have. He needs to earn that back. Now, I know he's third in the Drivers' Championship right now, but I liked what I saw from Charles last week, and I think that this is momentum that he can carry into the next race. I think that this dirtier, cleaner thing is going to get more and more pronounced as the season goes, as we've talked about. And teams, like you said earlier, teams are going to start setting up for quali. And this is a huge opportunity for Ferrari to try and jump back into relevancy here in the drivers' champion, in the constructors. Even though McLaren's running away with things, they still want to finish, higher than fourth. I like Charles to come in third here, Oscar to come in second, Max to get pole. But you have a different order.
I do, and I just actually changed it. I think quali, Oscar, Max, Lando. I originally had Oscar, Max, Charles. I just switched it to Oscar, Max, Lando. I mean, having just said that thing about Lando and his confidence, I think that does happen. I do. It's going to happen at some point. I think this is when it does. So I think he qualifies third. And I think he stays there in the race. I think it finishes Oscar, Max, Lando. Oscar put in the fastest lap of the race last year by 0.2 of a second. So Lando won the race, but you could say Oscar was the fastest guy.
Which is kind of been what it's been this season.
No, it's
like
opposite
Oscar's
this
been
year.
Oscar's
the
been
opposite this year. Lando's been the
faster.
fastest guy. Lando's been the fastest guy, but Oscar's won the races because he hasn't made mistakes.
I wasn't talking about the
Oscar
actual
was
times.
Fastest in.
I wasn't talking about the times themselves. That's on me. I was just saying Oscar has just been the faster guy. When I say faster, I mean he's been winning the races.
Yes, he has. But you look at Saudi, Lando was in second in FP1 by 0.007 seconds to Pierre. First in FP2, first in FP3, first in Q1, first in Q2, crashed in Q3. Lando was the fastest driver all weekend long in Saudi Arabia.
So why aren't you picking him to win next week or a week?
It happens. Mental happens.
Yeah.
But I think he fights back in some way. I think he gets up on the podium, and that's the best. That's the best case for him. Best case obviously is him winning, but what he needs to do is get a podium.
Sorry, I'm just fixing my camera right there.
But he needs it. He needs it because the further out of control, or the bigger the gap between him and Oscar gets, if it grows, the harder it's going to be to overcome these gremlins and these mistakes.
Yeah,
he's going to have to push harder.
He needs to have a top 3 finish this week. He needs to win this week. For being honest,
yes.
He needs to stem the bleeding.
I just don't think
for that's going to happen.
His mentality, he needs to beat Oscar.
Yeah, At a minimum. At a minimum. My race prediction is the same as my quali. I have Max, Oscar, Charles. Now, part of me is doing this because I'm just trying to, I'm trying to will Lando on, give him a little tough love here because obviously he's listening to this podcast. But I need to see it from Lando. I need to see a clean weekend. And this is a great place for him to do it, but he's lost a little bit of confidence from me. So we're going Max, Oscar, Charles. I think this is a prime Verstappen wire to wire spot. He loves the big moments. The celebrities come out in Miami. It's going to be a warm
David
track.
Beckham's going to be there. We know that.
Everybody's going to be there. Lionel
Probably
Messi will
with
probably be
McLaren.
there. The whole world, the whole celebrity world will be in Miami for this. So, yeah, Max, Oscar, Charles.
Yeah, I guess in the wise words of Will Smith, bienvenidos a Miami.
Yeah. Bienvenidos a Miami. All right, folks, that's it for us this week. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, give us 5 stars, leave a review, and thanks for listening, as always. That's it for us this week. We will be back with probably a little news update next week ahead of Miami. But for now, that's it. Peace.